Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a review on My Oxford Year by Julai and Whelan. I tried to film this tried to film this in a way that did not spill spoilers, but it just wasn't working. So if you want to read this book, I would avoid this video entirely because I am going to be it's more like a discussion style video. By the title, you're going to tell it's a rant review. So a bunch of spoilers are going to be in this, so I would just avoid this video. But if you don't care, then just keep on watching. Also, I just want to preface this video by saying that I just took my Invisalign out and my mouth is just kind of moving a little bit weird because I put it in like yesterday for the first time since like 1943. So my teeth are really sore. So if I'm talking a bit funny, that would be why. So yeah, we'll just get into the book review from now. All right, so in terms of things that I liked about this book, I have one thing, and it's that the guy was entertaining. He was just like, I think his name was Jamie. I read this book like 2 weeks ago. I've been putting off doing this video because I kind of felt bad doing a review on it, which I'll explain later. But Jamie was a pretty likable character. Like, I can take him face value for what he is. He's just kind of like, he has a British accent and he's super confident. He's a bit of like a lady killer, but he's misunderstood, like all that kind of shit. So anyway, in terms of things that I didn't like, I have a very lengthy list, and the reason that I've been so apprehensive to film this video is because I know that if I was at a different, how do I word this? If I was at a different kind of mindset in terms of reading, I would like this book. But because I've kind of just been pushing away all books that are just very like typical, you're not like other girls, super kind of cheesy W Network-esque, I just did not like this book at all. It felt like just so predictable, and just there were areas of it that were so frustrating. But the most frustrating part about it was I felt like my frustration was like invalid because I was like, you know that these books exist because they always do. Like, they're just those books. Like, I was expecting this book to be something that it just would not have been because this story wasn't meant to be that way. If that makes sense. And this is where the spoilers are going to come in. So towards the end of the book, you have, her name is Ella, right? Okay. So towards the end of the book, Ella is faced with a decision that I should probably go through like the whole thing and then I'll talk about that because it's going to make no sense if I just talk about the ending. But basically, Ella goes to England for her Oxford year or whatever. And she runs into Jamie, who at this point she doesn't know is her professor at like a chip shop. Or no, he almost runs her over in a car, and then she's in a chip shop and she bumps into him again. And they kind of like flirt, but she thinks he's a bit of a douchebag. The next day she learns that he's her professor. This within like 10 pages is suddenly written off as, oh, in England, like they don't care if professors and students are like together, which I was like, okay, like same. I don't know if that's actually true, but it was just kind of written off like that. So I'm like, okay, so the main conflict that I thought was going to be the main conflict is not a conflict at all. Where is this going? And immediately in my head, I'm like, he's either going to be really, really sick, or he's going to have daddy issues, or she's going to have daddy issues or something. It turned out that it was two of the three. Jamie was extremely sick and was hiding it, and he also has daddy issues. Or not daddy issues in that way, just kind of like overbearing parents, not their parents. And honestly, like, I figured this out within like 100 pages of the book. Like, they didn't even kind of hint at him being sick, and it was just like, oh, he's always away and he's always this. And I was like, oh my God, like, it's gonna be one of those. Also, another thing that kind of really bothered me about this book was the jargon was so, like, you could just tell it was an American trying to write something that was super, like, English. At one point, I kid you not, I also hated the character because literally she lands in England, she goes to a fish and chip shop, she learns the word posh prat, and within 30 seconds, uses it on somebody, like on Jamie. She literally learns the word and is like, oh, okay, posh prat. And then Jamie does something, I think like they first meet, and she calls him it. It's like, you don't even know, like, all I could think when I read that was, I was like, oh my God, I'm picturing all of the cringy tourists that like just use jargon and slang that they don't really understand in situations that it doesn't really make any sense to like look like locals. And immediately I'm like, I already hate this character. Like, oh my God. Also, a lot of the British characters were written as if they were from the 1990s, and it was kind of weird. And like, there was just kind of these unnecessary, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, she randomly is like best friends with like the fish and chip guy within 30 seconds. And some guy who like takes her bags in the beginning talks like he's literally from the 1900s. It doesn't really make any sense, and it felt kind of weird. And I actually looked into it. I'm like, has this girl ever been to England? She spent like an Oxford year like in real life. So I was like, I don't understand where she's like, does she think that this is what like people who haven't been to England want to read England is like, because it's not really like that. I don't know if like, did I go to a different England? Like, I'm confusion. Also, something that kind of stopped me from immediately picking up this book was that I knew that a big thing about this book was going to be the culture shock, which I'm just not really interested in reading about an American being shocked by like English culture. Like, that's not really something I want to read. And it was such a big part of this book, which they literally say that it's going to be a big part of the book, and I bought it anyway, so I can't fault it for that. But it was just like parts were so boring. I was like, it's tea. Like, you have tea in America. It's not that big of a deal. Like, she was, I feel like bad faulting it for that, because the book is quite upfront about what to expect. But in terms of my biggest gripe with this book, it's definitely the fact that this book follows the structure of type A personality woman who's very career oriented, but then drops everything for the guy that she loves. I understand that this is like a common idea and it's used in many books. I typically avoid them for a reason. I did not know that this was actually going to be one of those kind of books. I thought it was going to be one of those like scandalous, like, I don't even know. I thought it was going to be a lot more scandalous than it was, and it wasn't, which is kind of annoying. And that's what I was expecting. But once I did kind of clue in, I'm like, oh, fuck, he's sick. That's when I started to realize, I'm like, oh my God, no. Like, for 90% of the book, she is not only doing a year at Oxford in like a program that is a lot harder than a standard program, but she's also doing a campaign trail for somebody, like helping along and all of that kind of stuff. So you can tell that she's she's a go-getter. She's very career-oriented. She is very determined to be successful. And for 90% of the book, you're like, wow, like this is very admirable, da da da. And then the writer just kind of goes and she throws it all away for love. How romantic is that? And it's like, is it though? Like, is it? My thing is, I understand Jamie is very sick, meaning that he can't, like, I'm assuming that he can't move to America, because my initial thought, I'm like, why can't he just move to fucking America? And then she continues her job and he is just kind of there, like living life. It just kind of seemed weird that immediately she just kind of is like, I know what I have to do. I will drop everything that I've been working for love, which I understand that like that's like a real thing that can happen. And yes, that's very romantic and like it's very compassionate of her. It's very selfless of her, but it's just kind of frustrating that it's always the woman who has to drop her career and everything that she's worked really hard for because of a guy. And I know that's a weird kind of critique to have, especially when the male character is terminally ill, but I don't know. I don't know how to explain it without kind of sounding like a dick, because the male character is terminally ill. That's why I've been so apprehensive to post this and even film it, because it's like, if he was completely fine, then I would be like ripping into this book, but he's terminally ill. So it's like, it's kind of different because he like can't get up and leave, or I'm assuming because they don't even entertain that idea. They just are like, Jamie has to stay here. And you have to either because at one point after she's basically finished her Oxford year, she's offered a position to be, it's like the head of the campaign or something, or like the woman won, and Ella would get like a really big spot on like their team, which was like, wow, she's worked her whole life for this. And then they're like, well, Jamie's staying here, so figure it out, which is like, come on. I think also another thing that kind of stopped me from posting this and even filming this review was that you kind of know it's gonna be one of those books. Like, you just know it's gonna be the one where it's like, oh my God, she gives up her career for a man. How great, how romantic. Oh my God, like all tied up in a nice little bow. He doesn't even actually die in the book. Like, she kind of is like, he's gonna die soon, but for now we're at a waterfall and whatever, because he's super rich and they can go wherever. But it's like, sis, what about your career? Like, what happened there? Like, you're just gonna ditch it? Same. I just, like, her character to me, like, Ella seems like a person that needs to be doing something to be fulfilled. And like, now what is she doing? She's just kind of like, which I get. People are gonna be like, she loves him, she loves Jamie, like she loves him. But it's like, okay, but she can't do anything else, like nothing. She's just gonna climb a waterfall, that's it. I just don't like the idea that this book followed the structure of developing this super hardworking, independent woman, and then just kind of went, and then she falls in love, and then kind of just loses her career and everything, which it's like, does she have to lose all of that to be in a relationship? Like, and this is like what I mean. Like, I know it's just a book, and I know that it's like, I'm being like super critical. I think this is just like, it really hit a pet peeve for me in books. And that's why I typically try to stay away from these, because I really don't like books like this, because it just kind of makes me angry. Because in a book world, you can write whatever you want. You could have easily said, oh, Jamie is able to fly to America, or she's able to get a job in the States, or not the States, the UK. And you could argue that, oh, well, that's tying that up too pretty, like in a bow. But at the same time, it was still kind of tied up very like, he's not dead yet. They're like, I think, what does it end with? It ends with something along the lines of like, oh, we're on a waterfall. Like, that moment hasn't come yet, but for now I'm just living. Well, I learned about choice right alongside Ella, and gee, I choose you. Like, what? Like, it doesn't, career and love, they don't actually have to be a choice. Like, why do books have to constantly frame it as if it's one or the other? You can have both. Like, oh. Like, and I just noticed this is a very common trend in contemporaries, or contemporary, like, romance-oriented books, is there's always you have your career or you have your romance. It's like, why? There are so many other ways that you can make a book dramatic, or kind of have I understand that, like, it's a very easy way to have something, like a major conflict in a book, because it's like, oh my God, are you going to choose the person you love or the career you've worked your whole life for? But it's like, aren't we tired of it? We've seen it so many times. It's ridiculously predictable. They're always going to choose the person they love. And it's just kind of like, why do they always have to lose their fucking career? Like, I still, like, I don't even know. I feel like this definitely isn't like a very good review in the sense of the fact that I've spoiled everything. It's just kind of me aimlessly ranting about this. I wasn't expecting this to be a great review, because I don't even know. If you have read this book, let me know your thoughts. I'm genuinely curious as to what other people think about this. I think that I'm quite jaded on this book, and I almost kind of don't trust my opinion on it, because the minute I kind of predicted that like plot progression, I'm like, fuck, like, this is just, no, it's not my jam. So if you have read it, let me know what you think, or what you thought of it. If you're planning on reading it, let me know. Or if you're planning on reading it, I'm so sorry for spoiling this, or spoiling this. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like, feel free to subscribe. What else is there? Comment down below any book recommendations you guys have. I have like a long ass list now that I'm actually super excited to like crack into eventually, of all the books that you guys have mentioned so far that you guys want me to read. But yeah, if you guys want to keep up with me outside of booktube, or not booktube, YouTube, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter, which are both Casey Aonso. I actually deleted Snapchat because I fucking hate that app and it's not working. So yeah, Snapchat's canceled, but Instagram and Twitter still up and running. So if you want to follow me there, you definitely can. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.